You send the message. She reads it. No reply. An hour slips by. Then two. A whole day fades into silence. Obeying her silence. You're like a dog, wagging your tail at the mere promise of affection. But Nietzsche didn't just diagnose the disease, he revealed the cure. Which one are you? Because the moment you stop fixating on what you lack, you begin to become the kind of man others want to follow. So next time your thoughts spiral into obsession, ask yourself, am I sacrificing who I am to win someone else's approval? If the answer is yes, then stop. Not to manipulate or to play mind games, but to reclaim your sovereignty. In a world addicted to likes, validation, and approval, Nietzsche introduced a radical idea, the Übermensch, the overman, a man who transcends the crowd by first conquering himself. He doesn't chase, he doesn't bow down, he never asks, do they like me? Because he isn't here to fit into the world, he's here to rise above it. Most men are shackled by desire, fear, and the desperate hunger to be noticed, especially by women. But Nietzsche reminds us, you weren't born to be liked. You were born to become something far greater. The Übermensch isn't some alpha stereotype. He's no player obsessed with status or external validation. His strength comes from within, honed in silence, solitude, discipline, and brutal honesty with himself. He values purpose over pleasure, mission over approval, and presence over pursuit. And because he demands nothing from anyone, others, women included, are naturally pulled toward him like gravity. The essence of the Übermensch is simple yet profound. While most men fear loneliness, he seeks it, because in solitude, a man faces his true self. In silence, he hears the call of who he's meant to become. Nietzsche wrote, "The great man is great through his free spirit. He goes his own way. The Übermensch doesn't crave company, he chooses it." He spoke of becoming the Übermensch, not some cold, detached alpha stereotype, but a man who masters his own desires. He's never desperate for attention. He is at home with himself. He doesn't drift through life, hoping to be picked. He chooses his path. His life is fueled by an inner fire, a mission so compelling that everything else fades into white noise. He doesn't stop to chase a text, a smile, or a maybe, because he knows no woman will ever fill that void. Only purpose can. While others squander years chasing fleeting pleasures, the Übermensch is mastering himself. Every day, he sharpens his mind, strengthens his will, and expands his vision. He doesn't compete with others, he competes with who he was yesterday. This quiet mastery is magnetic. When he enters a room, he's not loud or flashy. He's grounded. People feel it immediately. He doesn't need to be liked. He doesn't fear being misunderstood. He doesn't bend to be accepted, because he accepts himself unapologetically. And paradoxically, that very indifference is what makes him irresistible. A man who doesn't seek your validation radiates true power. Here's why women are drawn to men who walk their own path. They aren't attracted to neediness. They crave stability, mystery, and depth. They want a man who is centered, self-assured, and unshakable. The Übermensch embodies that energy. He's the calm in the storm, the rock in the chaos. He doesn't depend on others to feel whole because he's already complete. And that confidence is magnetic. It pulls others in without effort. A man who walks his path alone, so whole and complete that others naturally gravitate toward him. This video isn't about tricks to capture her attention. It invites connection, not because he's desperate for it, but because he's whole enough to share himself freely. So, ask yourself, are you living to please, or are you becoming the man who commands his own life? Because when you stop obsessing over what you don't have, you start becoming someone worth chasing. Who don't shy away from quiet, who don't chase because their cup is already full. The man who walks his path alone isn't broadcasting arrogance. He's telling the world his spirit is whole, that he doesn't seek validation through someone else's gaze. That rarity, that's true strength. That's raw masculinity. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about being grounded, unwavering, because a man who can't stand his own company will never lead with conviction, and a man whose sole mission revolves around women will always be lost in their orbit. Real-world echoes of the Übermensch. Friedrich Nietzsche himself, a man who dismissed society's expectations, lived in solitude, and penned truths that burned with prophetic intensity. Mocked and misunderstood in life, dying in isolation, but his words, They've outlasted empires. He sought truth, not approval. Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate polymath. While the world chased fleeting pleasures, he chased mastery. His legacy wasn't about charm or company. It was about creation that transcends time. Then there's Batman Bruce Wayne, the fictional embodiment of the Übermensch in our era. A solitary, driven force indifferent to fame or praise. Haunted, yes, but powerful. Not because he's charismatic, but because he doesn't need to be. These men, whether flesh or myth, reveal the same undeniable truth. The strongest man isn't the one with the most admirers. He's the one who could have them, but his eyes are fixed elsewhere. Too many get caught up chasing, wondering, why doesn't she want me? The question itself is backward. It's about something far more dangerous and powerful. Becoming the kind of man who doesn't need it at all. Because the more you crave her, the less she notices you. The real question should be, am I becoming the man I'd respect? Would I hold my head high, even if no one ever noticed? Because the Übermensch doesn't perform for applause. He builds a life worth the show. He doesn't chase women. He becomes the man they chase, though. He's too busy building to even realize it. Stop chasing, and everything flips. Power shifts. The game rewrites itself. That silence you feared, it becomes your greatest weapon. Most men live by reaction. They're hooked on the feedback loop. A text, a glance, a smile. Each little sign fuels their dopamine addiction. But when you break free from chasing, you break that spell. You pull your energy back. Suddenly, the very thing you pursued starts to notice your absence. Because power always rests with the one who needs less. When you chase, you signal weakness. You say, my time is yours. You only own my attention is free. I don't value myself, I value you. But when you stop, you seize control. Now she's wondering, why isn't he texting? Why is he so calm? Why isn't he reacting? That silence. It sparks tension, not the kind that pushes away, but the kind that draws in. You become the unknown, the unpredictable, the man she can't solve. Her view shifts from just another guy to an enigma. Women aren't drawn to desperation. They're pulled to depth, to gravity, to mystery. The man who chases is ordinary, replaceable. But the man who steps back, who holds his ground, who needs nothing, that man becomes a puzzle. And humans, especially women, can't resist a puzzle. But when you disappear into your purpose, she'll feel your absence like gravity itself. So forget the pickup lines, the validation, the chase. Can't help but want to unlock the mystery. When you stop chasing, your presence gains weight, not in noise or volume, but in substance. There's a gravity to a man who holds his silence, who doesn't explain himself, who doesn't beg to be picked. Suddenly, her view shifts from, he's always there, to what is he so focused on? From I can have him anytime, to, did I just miss my shot? Your absence speaks louder than any word you could say. But this isn't just about her, it's about you. Every moment spent running after someone who hasn't chosen you is a moment lost to yourself. You lose your focus, your clarity slips. The fire that defines you starts to flicker out. But when you stop, really stop, you find your center again. You realize your attention is sacred, your energy, pure currency, and your worth. It doesn't rent itself out for approval. Instead of obsessing over her next move, you start planning yours, your mission, your growth, your evolution. You stop playing the game of who's paying attention and begin building a life of purpose. Here's the paradox. The more complete you become, the more magnetic you grow. Because real attraction isn't about chasing, it's about alignment. It's about walking your path so fully, so powerfully, that people want to follow, want to join. So if you're exhausted from the chase, quit. Not as a tactic, but as a rebirth. Every second wasted begging for attention steals from your legacy. Pull back. Let's dive deep into Nietzsche's ruthless laws of power, and what it truly means to become the one who never chases, because he simply doesn't have to. Rebuild, rise. Because when you stop chasing women, you start chasing your future, and that pursuit is everything. Most men read Nietzsche like he's some distant, unreachable genius. But his message? It wasn't written for libraries or classrooms. It was for warriors, men battling their own weaknesses, men done chasing shadows, ready to ignite. This isn't philosophy for debate, it's philosophy for transformation. So, how do you live Nietzsche's truth? He said, the individual has always had to struggle to avoid drowning in the tribe. You can't become powerful if you're constantly plugged into noise, messages, memes, notifications, reactions. Solitude isn't loneliness. Solitude is sovereignty. Take 1 hour every day, no phone, no social media, no distractions, just you, your thoughts, walking, writing, reflecting. That's where your real voice emerges. That's where the desperate chaser dies, and the centered creator is born. Because power isn't loud, it's found in silence. Every man without purpose ends up orbiting a woman. Nietzsche warned, man must create values, his own meaning, anchor your life to something greater, a mission, a craft, a vision only you can see. Don't ask, how do I impress her? Don't all ask, what empire am I building? When your life is rooted in purpose, people sense it. They see it in your stance, your discipline, your gaze. Women are drawn to men who belong to themselves, not to others. Men who don't seek approval, but demand respect from their own standards. Men who don't need to prove anything, because they already know who they are. If you're tired of chasing and ready to evolve, hit subscribe. Let's walk this path together. You don't wake up one day and decide to chase. This is the man who commands attention not by trying, but by simply being. The man who's too busy growing
to notice anyone chasing him.
So stop chasing shadows, become the light, because when you do, the world, and yes, she will follow. They're drawn to a man with a mission, because deep down, they sense a man chasing greatness won't be chasing them. And that contradiction, that's the spark of real attraction. You don't control who texts back. You don't control who stays, who likes, who chooses you. But you do control how you show up. Reactive men crumble when life doesn't match their expectations. Nietzsche called this bitterness, a symptom of what he called slave morality. But the Übermensch, he rises above outcomes. He acts not for reward, but because the action itself is who he is. This is emotional detachment, not coldness, but centeredness, saying win or lose, I don't break, I build. And that inner strength, it's unstoppable. Nietzsche obsessed over self-overcoming, becoming stronger than the man you were yesterday. Not better than anyone else, just better than before. Here's how you train that. Journaling. Every morning or night, ask yourself, what did I chase today? When did I lose myself? What truth am I hiding from? Brutal honesty cuts through your illusions, exposing where you still seek validation. Physical discipline. Cold showers, intense workouts, waking early, not because they're trendy, but because they forge grit, and grit, that's the seed of greatness. Silence. Build your tolerance for stillness. Sit without distractions, drive without podcasts, breathe without noise. Why? Because silence brings your demons out. It's not a conscious choice, it's instinct, hardwired, automatic. You see her, feel that pull. She doesn't say a word, but your mind starts painting futures, spinning stories. And when they come, you face them, you grow stronger, you find clarity. Nietzsche said, one must still have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. What does that mean? Stop chasing the light outside. Stop being the moth obsessed with the glow. Instead, become the flame. Let your discipline blaze. Let your solitude shine. Let your purpose set fire to the world around you. You don't need approval. You need to burn so bright that the world can't look away. Be the source, be the spark, be the gravity. This is the true Nietzschean path. Not pretty quotes for Instagram, but habits for transformation. No more chasing. No more begging. No more waiting for anyone's permission. You're not here to be liked. You're here to transform, to suffer, to conquer, to rise. Become the man women whisper about, not because you chased them, but because you passed by with your eyes fixed on a future only a few dare to dream. Here's the truth. Nobody says out loud, love doesn't go to the man who wants it most. It goes to the man who needs it least. This isn't cynicism. It isn't bitterness. It's reality. Nietzsche never sugarcoated reality. You can be kind. You can be loyal. You can worship the ground she walks on. But the moment you need her, the moment you orbit her like a satellite, you destroy the gravity that made you magnetic. You dissect every glance, every message, every silence. And just like that, you're chasing. But have you ever stopped and asked, why does it feel so natural, yet hurt so deeply? The answer lies buried in your biology. Because what women really feel pulled to isn't pursuit, it's power. Women aren't evil. They're wired to seek strength. They sense when a man is whole, or when he's incomplete. When you chase, you broadcast neediness. When you're grounded, you radiate power. Power that doesn't demand. Power that invites. Power that doesn't flinch. So stop spinning your wheels trying to get her to choose you. Instead, choose yourself. Build your empire. Forge your legacy. Master your craft. Because a man with a mission is a man no one can ignore. And that's the kind of man women chase, not the one chasing them. Stop chasing. Start becoming. And watch the world bend toward you. Women are drawn to strength. Let's get this straight. This isn't about blaming women. It's about recognizing biology. Like men, women are wired deep down for survival and power. It's primal. It's instinctual. And it doesn't care about your excuses or your feelings. When you chase her, she doesn't feel desire. She feels tension, anxiety, an imbalance in the energy between you. But when you stop the chase, when you find your center, something shifts. She senses mystery, depth, real strength. And strength? That's magnetic. You don't beg for what commands respect. A lion never pleads for honor. A king never begs for love. Power isn't given. It's earned by becoming. Nietzsche called this the will to power, the fundamental drive to grow, to rise, to conquer weakness. When you waste your energy chasing a woman, you smother that fire. You dim your light, you set your crown aside and start crawling. When you desire someone, your brain floods with dopamine, the same chemical that fuels addiction. This isn't love, it's craving. And tell me what queen ever follows a man on his knees. But when you chase greatness instead, when your focus is purpose, passion, mastery, she feels it. She sees it. You become a force that can't be tamed. And that's when she leans in. The cruel irony? The less you chase, the more she chases. You've glimpsed a truth most refuse to face. Chasing isn't strength, it's neediness. It's born from emptiness. Emptiness of purpose, of direction, of belief in yourself. But Nietzsche didn't want you stuck in that void. He wanted you to rise above it, to stop reacting and start commanding. The nice guy obeys, the chaser waits, the Übermensch creates. He doesn't follow, he leads. He doesn't beg, he becomes fonts. You aren't here to earn her approval, you're here to reclaim yourself. Because the moment you quit chasing, the world shifts. The energy changes, the pull reverses. If this message hits something deep inside you, if a voice whispers, "This is who I'm meant to be," don't scroll past like it's just another video. Let this be the spark that starts your transformation. He who cannot command himself must obey. Friedrich Nietzsche. Command your mind. Command your energy. Command your life. And if you're ready to evolve, to stop chasing and start building unstoppable power, subscribe to Cyphos. Not for the content, for the fire that forges boys into kings. You were never meant to chase, you were meant to be followed. Your eyes fixate on the screen, heart pounding, mind spinning what went wrong. You replay every word, every emoji. You send another message. The further she drifts, the stronger the spike in your brain. Every ignored text becomes a test. Every compliment, a reward. Your worth begins to hinge on her attention. This is no attraction. This is a trap. You're caught in a loop, addicted to the highs of anticipation, crashing in the lows of rejection. The truth is, you don't chase because you want to win her. You chase because your brain is hijacked by craving. But here's the catch. Real power comes when you break free. When you stop making her your source of validation and become your own. When your life, your ambitions, your values become the gravity she orbits, not the other way around. You become the man who commands himself first. Because no one can pull what's already firmly grounded. So step back, refocus, reclaim your throne. The chase ends when you start chasing the life you were meant to lead. Not her attention. Not her approval, but your own destiny. Remember, true strength isn't in the pursuit, it's in the refusal to be pursued. And that right there is the difference between a man who begs and a man who commands. It runs deeper than you think. For so many men, chasing women isn't really about romance or desire. It's about something else entirely: validation. That quiet, persistent voice inside whispering, "If she chooses me, then maybe I'm enough." But where does that voice come from? Childhood shadows. Maybe you were the boy nobody really noticed. Maybe love was a prize you had to earn, a reward for behaving just right. Still nothing. That silence, it claws at you. Your confidence shrinks, your sense of control slips through your fingers, because deep inside, you already know the one who chases is already losing. Maybe the first time you felt important was when a girl finally looked your way and smiled. That small, aching wound follows you into adulthood. You're not just chasing her, you're chasing that fleeting feeling of being worthy. Nietzsche saw this with piercing clarity. He described two forces that shape us, the reactive and the active. The reactive man lets the world define him. He doesn't lead, he follows. He chases love because he feels unloved, craves attention because he feels invisible, clings to women because he's lost without them. Nietzsche despised this reactive weakness, not because it's evil, but because it's self-defeating. Think about it. When you chase, you wait anxiously for her reply. You dissect every story she posts. You overanalyze every word you send. Slowly, you start to orbit her world, losing sight of your own. Nietzsche would say, this is your downfall. You're no longer living your life. You're begging to be chosen, begging to be enough. But here's the raw truth. The more you chase, the less she values you. Because deep in her primal brain, the man who chases is the man with no alternatives. And a man without options is a man without power. Here's the secret. No one talks about chasing feels natural because it mimics addiction. But like any addiction, it destroys you from the inside out. Anxiety creeps in. Focus disappears. Your standards slip. And worst of all, you forget who you were before she walked into your life. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But when your why becomes a woman who doesn't want you, you stop being a man, you become a shadow of yourself." Friedrich Nietzsche didn't beg. He never chased. He understood power as a force that draws, not a desperate plea that pursues. Nice guys finish last. We've all heard it. Many live it. But Nietzsche understood this long before modern dating advice flooded the internet. He called it slave morality, and it's quietly killing men today. To Nietzsche there were two kinds of morality. Master morality, the code of the powerful, and slave morality, the code of the weak. Master morality is forged from strength. It celebrates ambition, dominance, pride, achievement. It declares, I create my own values, I rise, I lead, I conquer. Slave morality is born from resentment. It's the worldview of those who failed to dominate. It flips reality upside down, turning weakness into virtue. Where the strong say, I desire power, the weak say, power is corrupt. Where the strong take what they want, the weak call it greed. This slave morality teaches men to shrink, to settle, to accept less than they deserve. It makes men chase approval, chase affection, chase dreams that aren't theirs. But here's the challenge. To escape this trap, you must become the master of yourself. Not by controlling others, but by commanding your own desires, your own purpose. Be the man who walks his path so fiercely that no silence, no rejection, can shake him. Because power isn't in chasing, it's in standing firm, in becoming whole. This isn't about playing games or manipulating feelings. It's about reclaiming your life from the inside out. When you do that, you stop orbiting her world, and she starts orbiting yours. To Nietzsche, weakness wasn't poverty, failure, or pain. It was obsession, the hunger to be wanted, to be seen, to be needed. So stop waiting for validation. Stop begging for attention. Instead, build your empire, define your values, live with fire and discipline. Become the man who doesn't just want power, he embodies it. Because the truth is brutal, but freeing. When you stop chasing, you become unstoppable. When you stop needing her, you become magnetic. And that, my friend, is the power Nietzsche warned us about, the power to rise above, to lead, and to live unapologetically. Now ask yourself, are you ready to leave the slave morality behind, to stop chasing shadows, and start commanding your own destiny? If the answer is yes, hit subscribe. Let's walk this path of power together. Humility is often praised, but there's a darker side to what we call being humble, where the strong stand tall, the weak preach submission, politeness, and playing small. Sound familiar? This is the blueprint of the modern nice guy. From childhood, you're taught to tone it down. Don't be too loud, don't rock the boat, always put others first, never offend. So you learn to shrink, to silence your desires, to dim your fire when you should be blazing bright. But Nietzsche would ask why. Who benefits from your obedience? Spoiler, it's not you. It's the system. Society loves a man who follows the rules, who smiles, who nods and obeys, because that man is easy to control. But women, they don't want to control you. They want to feel your strength. Here's the brutal truth. Seeking approval kills attraction. You weren't always like this. You had dreams, purpose, drive. You had discipline that forged your path. But somewhere along the way, she became the mission. When your every move is about being liked, chosen, validated, accepted, you become invisible. Why? Because seeking approval screams, "I don't believe I'm enough." Maybe you will. No woman is inspired by doubt. Nice guys think if they're polite enough, if they behave well enough, love will come knocking. But relationships aren't built on good behavior. They're built on raw energy. Women sense when a man hides behind a polite mask. It's not that women hate nice men. They hate fake men. Men too scared to lead, afraid to offend, terrified to say no. This is where Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the overman, shatters the illusion. The Übermensch isn't just strong, he's self-made. He doesn't wait for society's permission. He doesn't follow the crowd. He transcends it. He's not nice. He's real. Dangerous. Yes, but disciplined. Capable of chaos, yet anchored in purpose. He doesn't chase approval because he already approves of himself. And that self-certainty, that's magnetic. Now, be honest, when was the last time you said exactly what you wanted without softening it to sound polite? When was the last time you risked losing approval just to be authentic? Most men never do, because they've been trained to believe losing approval means losing everything. Nietzsche's message is clear. Become who you truly are. That's the path of the Übermensch. Not the path of pleasing, but the path of power. The path of building values so unshakable, the world bends to you, not the other way around. Here's the tragedy. Most nice guys aren't weak. Without realizing it, you handed over your crown. The moment you started chasing her, you abandoned chasing your own destiny. They're afraid of their own strength, conditioned to believe power is toxic. They bury it deep inside, until one day she leaves. She gets bored. She says, "You're too nice," and he's left wondering why. But now you know. The Übermensch doesn't chase. He attracts. He doesn't ask, "Do you like me?" He asks, "Do you align with my vision?" That's the difference. You can be liked, or you can be respected. Liked is easy. Respected is rare. And respect commands attraction. Think about it. Approval is a leash disguised as a gift. The moment you chase it, you give away your freedom. But when you stop running, when you stop begging to be liked, you become a force of nature. Your confidence becomes a magnet. Your authenticity becomes your power. So, forget what you've been told. Forget the pressure to be nice to everyone. True strength is about standing firm in your truth, even if it makes some uncomfortable. Real power isn't about control or manipulation. It's about mastery over yourself, over your desires, your emotions, your values. And that mastery, it's what draws others in like gravity. Not because you demand attention, but because you live in a way that can't be ignored. That's the legacy of the Übermensch, the man who lives by his own rules and lets the world catch up. So, are you ready to stop chasing approval? To stop shrinking for others, to step into your power and own your path? Because once you do, you won't need to ask if she likes you. You'll know exactly who you are, and she'll either come along or fall away. Nietzsche called this slave morality. Living to please, impress, and obey others, especially the one who holds your attention captive. The choice is yours. You can be powerful or liked, but rarely both at the same time. The second you start obsessing over someone, you lose, not because they're better than you, or because they rejected you, but because your mind becomes a cage, and you hand them the key. Obsession doesn't feel weak at first. It feels like a high. You can't stop thinking about her. You replay every message, analyze every emoji, and read between every line of silence. Your mind scripts a movie where she's the star, and you're just a background player. Slowly, you start measuring your worth by her attention. And that's when everything starts to decay. Every time you check if she's seen your story. Every time you rewrite that one text 10 times to get it just right. Every time you rewind your last conversation trying to decode what she meant. You're not just chasing her, you're losing yourself. Your focus blurs. Your goals? Forgotten. Your strength swallowed by one question.
Does she want me?
But Nietzsche would ask, why does it even matter? Why is your identity so fragile? that it shatters without someone else's validation. Here's the cold reality. Obsession is just emotional dependence in disguise. It's outsourcing your power, placing your value in someone else's hands, and praying they don't drop it. And inevitably, they do. Because no one, no matter how stunning, can carry the weight of a man who has nothing left inside himself. Nietzsche said, "He who cannot command himself must obey." When you're obsessed, you're no longer in control. You're reacting, submitting. In Nietzsche's terms, you become a slave to your emotions, to hope, to fantasies that blind you from your true self. He warned, "He who cannot command himself must obey others." And there you are, obeying the hope of a reply. It doesn't matter how masculine you look on the outside, if your thoughts revolve around someone else, you've already surrendered your throne. And it's not just your focus you lose, it's your self-respect. You start accepting things you shouldn't, you become too available. You ignore glaring red flags, you try to prove your worth, but a man trying to prove himself is already confessing he feels he's not enough. This is where Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming becomes revolutionary. He believed the toughest battle isn't out there against the world, it's inside. Against your lower urges, your neediness, your addiction to being wanted. He said, "Become who you are." Which means stop chasing the illusion of fulfillment in someone else and start building it within yourself. Obsession ends where inner strength begins. Because the man who truly knows himself, the man with a mission, a code, a path, does not revolve around anyone. He pulls others into his orbit. Women feel this immediately. A man rooted in self-respect doesn't have to prove, persuade, or perform. He simply exists. And that presence, that inner clarity, is magnetic. Here's what most men don't understand. The most attractive quality isn't charm or looks. It's centeredness, the ability to stay grounded in who you are, no matter how beautiful someone is. No matter if they reject you, no matter how long the silence lasts. When you can hold your space like that, you become unshakable, and that unshakability, that's power. So ask yourself, are you living inside your own mind, trapped in obsession? Or are you commanding your own life, anchored in your purpose, radiating confidence? The difference between a man who obsesses and a man who commands is the difference between a shadow and a king.